We've officially made it to day 30 of the 30-day holiday video challenge. To celebrate, we're making these adorable mini Christmas tree croquembouches. Hi there, foodie friends. My name is Carly and welcome to my channel, Adventures in Yum. Before we get into today's video, I have a passion for learning about creating and trying new foods, drinks, and especially desserts. If you want to join me on my yummy adventures, then please make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so that you'll know when I upload new videos every week. Now, let's dive into today's video. First, we're going to start with our colorful crunchy topping for our cream puffs, also known as profiteroles. To a mixing bowl, we're adding equal parts by weight, unsalted butter, granulated sugar, and all-purpose flour. Here I'm adding 100 grams of each, which works out to almost 1 stick or just under a half cup of unsalted butter, a half cup of granulated sugar, and a little less than 3/4 cup of flour. We simply mix this together, and when it's starting to come together, we add some green food gel. Once everything comes together and the color is completely mixed in, we place the dough on a piece of parchment paper, place another piece of parchment paper on top of that, and use a rolling pin to roll it out to about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch, or about 1.6 to 3.2 millimeters in thickness. We place that in the freezer for about 20 to 30 minutes and move on to our choux pastry. To start the pat of choux, also known as choux pastry, we add half a cup or 118 milliliters of water, half a cup or 118 milliliters of whole milk, 2½ teaspoons of granulated sugar, a half teaspoon of salt, and 1 stick or half a cup or 110 grams of unsalted butter to a saucepan. We place this over a medium or medium-high heat. Once it reaches a boil, we add 1 cup or 140 grams of all-purpose flour and stir that together. Once it becomes a cohesive dough and we've gotten any and all clumps of flour out, we remove it from the stove, add the dough to a separate large mixing bowl, and either let that cool for about 5 to 10 minutes, or we can do what I prefer, which is use a stand mixer, or today I'm using a hand mixer, to break up the dough and let that release a bunch of that heat. I either mix the dough until it seems cooled enough, or I mix it for a couple of minutes and then let it sit for a few minutes more. The reason we do this is to cool down the dough before adding our 4 eggs one at a time to the dough. Once each egg is completely mixed in, we then add the next one. We're now ready to pipe our batter. In a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1A tip, we're adding a tiny bit of batter to the 4 corners of a baking sheet and then placing a piece of parchment paper on the tray. The batter will help hold the parchment paper in place while we pipe our cream puffs. Because these are mini, we're just piping little dollops, making sure to both make them close in size for even baking as well as leaving some space between them because they will puff up. We're using a circle fondant or cookie cutter that's close in size to our pipe profiteroles to cut the green dough that we made earlier. We then place each little circle on top of the dollop of choux pastry, making sure to press down slightly so that the green disc will stay on the profiterole, but also not press down too much or else the profiterole won't puff up properly in the oven. If the green dough gets soft at all while cutting it and placing the pieces on top of the cream puffs, then pop it back into the freezer for about 5 minutes to chill once again. We can also add some edible glitter to the tops of these for an extra special touch. I saw Sonia of Wicked Confections on Instagram do this for her topping for some gorgeous homemade conchas, and I had to give it a try. Once we're all topped and ready to go, we're baking this at 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 191 degrees Celsius for about 25 minutes or until the bottoms of the profiteroles are nicely browned. Do not open that oven at all during the baking time. Once they're done, we place the baking sheet on a cooling rack and let them completely cool. Here's what our finished itty-bitty choux au craquelin looks like after baking. This one got a tad dark on top, so I think that placing the sheet tray on the middle or bottom rack in the oven would help alleviate this issue. This one turned out a little better with that gorgeous green top, and I'm officially obsessed with how adorable these tiny profiteroles are. They're just so cute. And here's what the inside of one of them looks like. Hollow inside perfection. To make our topper, we're melting half a cup or about 85 grams of Ghirardelli vanilla melting wafers, spreading it into a somewhat thin layer on a piece of parchment paper, and using a star-shaped cookie cutter to cut stars once the melts have hardened. I originally just thought I was going to add some edible glitter, but then I remembered that I have edible metallic gold paint, so I used that to paint the star. We're then letting that dry while we assemble everything. Before we finish these mini trees, if you're getting value out of this video, then please make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about my latest video. I made 2 different pastry cream fillings for these because I couldn't pick just one of these scrumptious holiday flavors. The first one is cinnamon and caramel, and the second is chocolate and peppermint. Before we add these to our piping bags, we want to stir them. I like to use a wire whisk to make them nice and creamy. We use a paring knife to make a tiny X in the bottom of our finished profiteroles, stick the tip of a piping bag in, and fill it with delicious pastry cream. We want to make sure that we fill them enough so that the entire center is fully filled, but we also don't want to fill it to the point where some can pop out of the top or on the side. With a little bit of practice, you'll be a pro in no time. We add some granulated sugar. Here I'm adding 1 cup or 200 grams to a heavy bottom saucepan. We place this over high heat, and as it starts to melt, we stir it periodically to make sure that all of the sugar is melting and caramelizing evenly. Once the sugar is fully melted and caramelized, we're ready to assemble. We take a sugar ice cream cone and dip the open end into the caramel. We place that on a little confections board and then either dip the bottom of the profiterole into the caramel or use a rubber spatula to add a tiny bit of caramel to the bottom and then stick it to the ice cream cone. Please be very careful when working with hot sugar like this. Sugar melts at an extremely high temperature, and we don't want you to get burned while making such a happy and fun looking treat. The caramel will harden fairly quickly and secure the cream puff to the cone. We continue adding profiteroles one by one around the sugar cone until we place a final one on top. We can leave it plain like this, but I felt like it needed a little something, so we sift some powdered sugar over the top to look like snow. Finally, we add a tiny bit of melting wafers to the bottom of the star, place it on top, and hold it for a few seconds until it stays and is secure. We can add a tiny bit of candy melts to the back of the star to help reinforce it and make sure that it stays, and then it's done. I am so excited about how this turned out. No joke, I've had this idea for about 2 years since the first and only other time that I've made a croquembouche, which was much bigger, but it still turned out well, especially for my first time. These mini choux au craquelin turned into a mini croquembouche is everything I was hoping it would be because I love mini things. So this was truly a fun way to finish this 30-day challenge. Do you love these little showstoppers as much as I do? Tell me in the comments below. You can also find these mini Christmas tree croquembouches on my website, adventuresinYum.net. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for checking out this and the other videos in this challenge. I truly appreciate all of the love and support during this challenge. If you missed any of the videos or you want to catch up, then you can definitely check out the playlist, and I've linked that down below. I have made a playlist of all of the videos in this challenge. If you're interested in checking out some of the products that I used in this video, please make sure to check out the video description below for their Amazon links. Thank you so much for joining me today, foodie friends. I'll see you next time for another holly jolly yummy adventure. I couldn't help myself.